So for the first time in a while, I'm back at the Motorist today for all the Renaults, and today we're starting off with a car that's quite close to my heart, having had quite a few in the family. We've got a Renault 5 which is owned by Jordan here. Morning, Jordan.
Hey, all right?
Not bad, thank you. So you've brought this Renault 5 which, when I saw it coming in with these grey spats and everything on, it looked like a Phase 1 turbo, but to my trained eye, I thought something doesn't quite stack up here. So what have we actually got?
Well, it's a 1.4 Campus, 5-speed. It started off, not been in my property long, about 8 months now, and when I got it, I had plans of turning it back to standard. But when I took the universal arches off, the rear arches were already cut, so the only route I could go was a turbo kit. Now, sourcing the turbo kit, it's come from numerous different cars. The rear bumper is original, the arches are original, the side skirts are fiberglass moulds, and the front bumper is a Phase 1 front bumper. That's why you get them spats, thinking it's a Phase 1.
Yeah. Obviously these are not Phase 1 style, are they, though, because Phase 1s would have had grills.
Yeah, they're the Phase 2 ones then. Like I said, they've come from multiple different cars. None of the arches are from the same car, it's all from different other cars. I've had to repaint them, fill them. It's been a process, but it's nearly there now, Yeah. So just for the benefit of anyone that isn't familiar with Renault 5s, towards the end of production, sort of a few years after the Clio had been launched, Renault continued with the 5 in the UK. On the continent they got the Twingo. We continued with the 5 as a cheaper model into the range. But what we got here is for around £6,000 back in 93, 94, this will be a 95, is it? I think it's a 96, this M-Reg.
Right. So yeah, this is one of the very, very last cars. But what Renault did is they took the Campus trim, which was a sort of base model, but they added this body side mouldings, which are not on this car. But they also put in a 1.4 litre engine, but by this point it was a 1390cc as opposed to the 1397, and the carbs were gone, and we had fuel injection. We also got a 5-speed gearbox, so these cars weigh around 800 and odd kilos, so they were actually pretty sprightly back in the day, and still great fun to drive even now. Now, Jordan, obviously, we know yours looks very different on the outside. I do love this sort of black and gold and the stripe matching with the wheels. Yeah. But you've done quite a bit on the inside as well. What have we got in here?
So the actual interior, door cards, other plastics on the inside are from a Monaco, same as the dash. The dash has been repainted. The seats are out of a Rover 800. I bought some Rover 800 seats and had the stitching taken out of them to match the centre stitching to the front seats. To be honest with you, other than that, I've had to make custom rails for the seats to fit because they were absolutely nowhere near ready for fitting. Yeah. It was they made out of 2x2 box section and basically bolted together. I do want to get them welded together, but that'll be for next year now.
So we've got a few changes right front here as well, Jordan. So you mentioned this is a Phase 1 bumper, and you were telling me about these spot lamps that you've put in. Now, you were saying that the spot lamps for the Phase 1 are smaller than the Phase 2 and they're quite hard to get.
Yeah, there's not much of a plastic surround for the Phase 1. They're just basically a glass, rather than the Phase 2 ones being a plastic surround and then a smaller glass in the centre. So I did order 2 Phase 2 fog lights to be fitted on this. As they turned up, too small, unable to send them back. When trying to source an original set, they were £500 for the pair. Now I was paying £500 for the pair. My best mate, Amazon, £16. The closest fitting ones I could get. They work like a dream.
Yeah, and you said they're wired up so when all these come on, your main beams, all these extra lamps.
Yeah, so ideally I want to try and get the spotlights and fog lights on a switch through the centre, but at the moment they are wired up, so when the main beam comes on, everything comes on. It's a light show.
Yeah, brilliant. I'd love to see that in dark, actually, just to see how good it looks. So yeah, one of the giveaways for me, obviously, that this was indeed a Campus is this grille, because that's the bulk of the Renault 5 range had this sort of style of grille on these facelift, what's known as a Phase 2 car. But yeah, that's wonderful. The bonnet as well, I've just noticed these vents, they're not stuck on, are they? They're actually...
No, I mean, they serve sort of a purpose, but the air filter's towards the centre of the car. But these are actually cosy vents that had been welded in by the previous owner. Now I wasn't stuck on them at first. I'm sort of warming to them. But for me, because the car's so boxy, I'd prefer square vents on the car.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'm warming to them. I might keep them. We'll see how they go over the winter.
Yeah.
I do have a bonnet and a boot in the garage that I'm going to get resprayed, so I've got a standard bonnet that I can throw on, and if I don't like it, at least I've got this one.
Yeah. Oh, it'll be good to see, maybe catch up with you again further down the line and just see how the car progresses when you've done a few more things.
Yeah.
That's wonderful, thank you very much.
No worries.
And parked here next to Jordan's car, we actually have a Phase 2 Renault 5 GT Turbo, and other than the ride height, this car is pretty much as it would have looked from the factory. We've got these original Speedline alloys, obviously Phase 2s were all colour coded as well. I really like these cars. I always wanted one of these, and sadly never actually owned a GT Turbo, but the 1989 brochure that I've still got at home has a white GT Turbo just like this one. Now, I have actually featured a Mark 1 Twingo on the channel before at the French car event they did here at the Motorist, but it's always nice to see another one. This one looks like one of the later style of cars, but yeah, it's quite a nice interior in this one. It's not as bright as the original cars, but not as beige as the Initial that I looked in previously. Now, the Mark 1 Twingo is the car that we never actually got here in the UK, sadly, so these are all left-hand drive. One thing I will say is when I did sit in one of these cars earlier this year, because of this sort of one-box design, almost like a shrunken Renault Espace almost, the amount of space inside them, I was amazed. These cars are really spacious inside. In fact, the owner of the car that I had a look in previously was about 6 foot, and he had loads of room inside the Twingo. Now, I've actually got a couple of Mark III Clios here today. What's interesting with these ones is we've got the pre and post facelift models with a slightly revised front end on this one. I do love this shade of blue on these Renault Sport models as well. It's really nice. Obviously, these Mark IIIs were the last of the normally aspirated Renault Sport Clios, so we still have the 2-litre engine in these, and by this point we're up to around 200 horsepower. So the Mark II Megane styling was quite a radical departure from the Mark I, particularly the rear end styling of these cars, which was very controversial at the time. Now, I actually did own a Mark II Megane. It was a 2002, and it was a 3-door body style like this, but it wasn't an RS model. Now, the car I had was okay. It was nothing special, and I must admit, it did have a lot of electrical gremlins. At that particular time, Renault were packing a lot of equipment into the cars. Sadly, it didn't always work quite as well as it should do. The RS model again joined the lineup a little bit later on. Now, this is a pre-facelift version. There was a slightly facelifted version of the car as well, and they did a lot of different versions. There was such as the R26R, which I believe actually held the lap record at the time of the Nürburgring. Really quick front-wheel drive car. In fact, the really hot versions that they did had plastic windows to save weight. That's how hardcore they really got. But yeah, modifiers do like these cars. They are very tunable. I think they came out of the factory with about 220 odd horsepower anyway, but I'm sure you can get quite a lot more out. And as you can see, this particular one is quite heavily modified as well. Now, as you can see, as mentioned, this is a 3-door body style, which was the most common variant of the RS. Now, at launch, Renault did actually do a 5-door version of the RS. Those cars are incredibly rare. I did actually see one earlier this year, but like I say, they are few and far between in 5-door variants. I'm joined by Martin today, who's brought this fantastic Mark IV Renault Megane RS. This is quite an interesting one because you were telling me this is an import.
Yeah, it's Australian import, Mark. I'm looking for a nice RS for many months. I wanted one in silver, but there aren't many spec'd in silver in the UK. And I came across this one just by accident on Auto Trader, and the suspicion straight away was it was a bit cheaper than the standard stuff. It only had 160 miles on the clock.
Right.
So I rang the people who were selling it, which was a car import-export company, and they told me the story. Don't know if I want to bore you with it or not. But basically, just as COVID hit, it came from Australia. Guy who got a job in the UK from Australia. They shipped the car over because apparently it's cheaper to ship it and buy it over there and ship it here than it is to buy it here.
Okay.
Weird, when it's French. But anyway, it came over. Guy lost his job because of COVID, so that a car with 160 miles on the clock that needed to sell, the company
Yeah.
I work for. So I was lucky enough to catch it at the right time.
Right.
And it has all. You can't get the panoramic roof on a silver UK spec car.
I must admit, I've never seen a silver one. That's what sort of caught my eye with this car, and it really does suit it, doesn't it?
I think it does, yeah. I wanted to buy it but I was buying it for the wife anyway.
Yeah.
And she didn't really fancy the oranges and the yellows that were going on. So.
Yeah, most of the ones you see are orange or yellow.
Yeah.
So in what other ways does it differ from a UK spec?
And it's a very small thing, of course, but it has windscreen headlight washers. Headlight washers. But it has all the. I think it's got everything on it. It's got the bows, it's got the RS seats, it's got the 19-inch alloys on it.
Yeah.
It's got the lot really.
Yeah.
We love it.
I thought it'd be interesting to try one because they have these and the GTs have the 4Control, don't they, on them?
Yes, they do. They do indeed. And it corners on rails. It is. You can feel it when you take it into a corner.
Yeah.
It pulls you into the corner. It's a lovely drive.
Yeah, I've driven the ones without 4Control. I've never actually driven one with, but I know people I've spoke to say they do drive well. I was just a bit. Do I want the added complexity of that sort of rear wheel steering?
Yeah. You don't notice it's there really.
Yeah.
It's just when you think about it.
Yeah.
How did I get around that corner?
Now it does actually work. At low speeds, it turns the opposite way, doesn't it?
Yes.
To get a tighter lock, and then at high speeds, it sort of works in parallel with the front wheels.
It does, yeah. And
Yeah.
It's very grounded.
Yeah.
And so you don't know it's there really until you realise how well it's gone around a corner.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a supercar.
But yeah, and obviously being that the Australians are right-hand drive, same as us.
Yeah, right.
Obviously, I know they use kilometres, but they're a Digi-Dash anyway. So
Yeah, it's MPH. Everything's MPH. Nothing different.
Yeah.
Nothing different about the car. You wouldn't know
yeah.
unless I told you so.
And obviously, being the car was already imported, there wouldn't have really been anything for you to do with the two.
Nothing.
Yeah.
No. The only downside to it is you can't find it on when you put it in a search or a part or something, because for some reason with it being an import you can't.
Yeah.
So that's the only downside.
Have any issues when you come to do insurance as well?
No, nothing.
No?
Nothing. I've got a few cars, so I kind of,
Yeah.
But we've had it. We got it from 2020. It's a 2020 car because my wife drives it. It's only done 10,100 miles.
Right.
So it's up to 3 years old next year.
Yeah.
So she doesn't drive it an awful lot either. So it's insured in her name.
Yeah.
With me as a driver as well. So,
Yeah.
So,
No, that's excellent. Thank you very much. So you've bought the car and got the T-shirt.
absolutely.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, that's great. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thanks a lot, man.
Back to our stuff again and then...
When Renault first launched the Mark IV Megane, the RS model that we know weren't actually in the range. That came a little bit later, and initially the hottest version was this car behind me, which is the GT. Now the GT uses the 1.6 litre turbocharged engine, much like that of the Renault Clio RS of the time. Now it is available only as an automatic, so you've got a paddle shift gearbox in here, but you've also got the 4Control system in this car, much like you've got on the RS version, so that steers the rear wheels as well as the front wheels. Now Renault did discontinue the GT model, and we did get left with a GT line, which later became the RS line. Looked very similar to this car, but just didn't have that 1.6 litre engine. Instead you had a small 1.2 or 1.3 litre engine, depending on the model year. Another thing with the full-fat GT, you did get some nice options in there, such as an Alcantara interior, which I think suits the car really, really well. GT and GT line models got things like these satin finished door mirrors and some sort of anodised blue aluminium strips on the dash and inside the door cards as well. So the satin finish trim down here on this bumper again, that was carried over into the later GT line and RS line models. You've got things like the LED headlamps as well, which are a really, really nice touch on these cars. This one's got the panoramic roof as well on it. I do quite like this shade of blue on this particular car as well. The wheels are aftermarket, they're not the standard wheels that the car would have come with. Now, these days, a lot of manufacturers are starting to pull their hot hatch versions in favour of a sort of sporty looking car but without the engine to match it. Things like this Clio behind us, and this is the latest generation, and this is an RS line. So you've got the sort of racy bucket seats and everything in there, and the big alloy wheels, but an engine that's, shall we say, a little more efficient and a little bit more insurance friendly. But this is the latest generation, as I say, and I think it actually looks really, really nice. I do love this this blue. It looks really, really bright here in the sunlight today. Obviously we've got these like sort of silver accents down here as well. Again, suit the car very, very nicely indeed. Now, I'm not even sure if you can actually buy a petrol only version brand new anymore. When I had a look on Renault's website the other day, the majority of the models was either full electric or a hybrid system. I think the hybrid they were offering in the Clio size car, from memory, was about 140 odd horsepower, give or take. You may be able to pick up a nearly new model. I think some of the Clios had the 3-cylinder 900cc TCE turbo engine. Now, for Renault Day here at the Motorist today, I've brought my Mark 1 pre-facelift Renault Megane Coupe. Anyone who's new to the channel may not have actually seen this car before, but this is the car that started the channel for me, and there's a stack of videos already on the channel that you can go back through at your leisure of me gradually getting this car back on the road. There's also a review video that I filmed a while ago of this car, and there's even a video from earlier this year where I drove the car back to Vilvoorde in Belgium, where it was built 25 years earlier. So you may wish to check that one out at some point as well. Another Renault that's not here today that I reviewed was the Renault Safran, 2.5 litre 5-cylinder executive. So again, if you like your Renaults, you may wish to go back and have a look at that video. There's also been quite a few French car shows I've attended this year as well, so I'll put some links at the end of this video to those. Obviously I won't be able to put them all in there, so as I say, you may have to dig through and find some of those for yourself. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Renault, like a lot of manufacturers, seem to be moving away from some of the traditional hot versions of their cars. In fact, I think Renault Sport, there are no longer any new Renault Sport models available. Where Renault are concentrating their sort of sports cars is in the Alpine range. And if I were having one, I'd have one in this blue. I love the A110. Now, the base models I think are available from around £50,000. An extra £10,000 will get you the GT or the A110S, but to be brutally honest, I think I'd just go with the standard car. They don't weigh a great deal. They use a 1.8 litre turbocharged engine, sadly only with an automatic gearbox with a paddle shift, but like I say, cars don't weigh a lot. I think they're about 1,100 kilos, which for a modern car is pretty phenomenal. Now, before I forget, I just wanted to mention that the channel is very, very close indeed to that 500 subscriber threshold. So if you like the videos and you watch regular, but you haven't already subscribed, please do hit that subscribe button and the bell notification. Once I get to 500 subs, it will allow me to open up a few features that are currently not available to me in YouTube. I've also been filming a 500 subscriber special, so as soon as we reach that threshold, I'll have a nice interesting car review to put out for you as well. Anyway, back to the cars here at the Motorist today. Behind me we've got a DeLorean DMC-12. Now, I know this is Renault Day and technically this isn't a Renault, but everyone loves a DeLorean, and though it's a bit tenuous, they are actually powered by a Renault V6 engine. Now, let's be honest, it's probably not the greatest engine ever out there, and for all the DeLorean's flaws, everyone loves these cars. Like a lot of small volume manufacturers, DeLorean did have to borrow a lot of parts from other cars. It's not always easy getting all that to work together harmoniously, but obviously the car was sort of rejuvenated a few years after the factory closed, when they featured in the Back to the Future trilogy of films. But yeah, fantastic car. It's really nice to see this one here today. If you've enjoyed the video, please do give me a thumbs up. If you've any comment to add on any of the vehicles you've seen here today, or maybe any questions, just drop me a comment below and I will try and get back to you as quick as possible. Thank you once again for watching, and I will catch you on the next one. Goodbye from me.